In 2023, we doubled our business. And even so, we still made a lot of mistakes. In this video, I want to share 3 big lessons I learned from last year that helped our business grow, and more specifically, how they can help you grow your business in 2024 and beyond. All right, so the first lesson I want to share is one around kind of expectations and standards. And the thing that I realized is that we will rise to the level of our standards and expectations. What I mean by that is a lot of us set fairly small goals, and I think the worst thing about that is when you actually achieve them. I don't know about you, but I don't get really excited by small goals that are very achievable and tangible. And there are some people that do, that's fine. But for me, last year, we decided to set a really big, lofty goal. Now, here's the thing, we did not hit that goal. However, we got half the way there. And I share this because had we set a goal that was a lot smaller, we probably would have got close to it or surpassed it, but that goal in and of itself would still be lower than what we ended up achieving in 2023, even though we didn't fully achieve the initial goal. I share this because when you stretch yourself, you force yourself to go above and beyond what you normally would. So think about it this way. When you have an elastic band and humans are actually very identical. We are not useful until we are stretched. So when you set a small goal, it's like an elastic band being stretched very minimally. There's not a lot of energy in the elastic band. When we set bigger goals, we stretch ourselves. And in the universe, nature wants to abort a vacuum or the path of least resistance. The path of least resistance between these 2 big points is to get there as fast as possible. So when I say like rising to your standards, rising to your expectations, what I mean by that is when we stretch, naturally there's a lot more tension between point A and point B. Think of it as in tension. The more tension there is, the more juice you have to move in that direction. So the big lesson last year was that by raising our standards, not just our goals, but what we accepted as okay, naturally it forced everyone on our team and our company to raise their level, to raise how they showed up on a daily basis. And as a result of that, everything else flowed. Client results, revenue for the company, how we showed up on a daily basis, versus if we had just set a small goal to begin with. So that's why I say raise your standards, raise your expectations, and everything will follow that. So then really the final thing about that is, for me at least, I have a very tough time tolerating anything other than exceptional. And that starts with myself. I have very high standards of myself and the people that we work with as team members and our clients. And I have that perspective because I want the most out of myself and I want to be able to give the most to other people. And that includes our clients. But I also expect our clients to have high standards for themselves because that will be indicative of how they show up in their business. So the second big lesson that I took away from last year was in today's fast changing landscape, we don't have the luxury of time to hire people that are okay and spend a whole year with them trying to get them to be great. I know that might seem harsh, but listen, that's just our philosophy, at least the lesson that I've learned. I want to share an example here. So the way I look at this is you've got seeds, like this pumpkin seed, and you have stars like this plant. And if you think of people you're looking to hire as stars and seeds, it can be interestingly helpful. So for instance, a seed is someone who has potential, who might be a bit more junior, and they can grow over time, right? With the right coaching and leadership and feedback. And that's awesome. But understanding that a seed will take longer to turn into this plant than if you just hired the star to begin with. So a star is coming in, batteries included, they've done it, they've been there, they've done the thing you want to do. Now understanding you're going to pay a higher price tag for this type of person versus a seed, and that's okay, depending on where you're at in business. Because at the end of the day, you have to figure out what's more important to you, having someone who's been there and done that, or someone you're willing to coach and elevate along the way. I share this because when I was starting my business, 20 years ago, I was hiring a lot of seeds because that's all I could afford at the time. But as your business grows, at least to the level that we're at, we don't have the luxury of time to spend with someone who's not where we need them to be. And unfortunately, that led us to hiring a half a dozen people and then letting them go within 30 to 60 days. And that's not something I really enjoy doing. So, there's a lot of lessons in the hiring process that we had to learn the hard way. Now we have a really rigorous hiring process. We want to make sure that we hire the right people and they're a good fit culturally as well as their skill, but sometimes things slip through the cracks. And that happened last year. So one of our core values is speed is king. And we realized that in some of those hires, we were so anxious to get someone in the role that we actually settled for and made a couple compromises for some of those roles. And lo and behold, a couple weeks later, the truth came out in terms of, oh, maybe this person is not the star we thought they were, they're a bit more of a seed. And that caused a lot of sluggishness in the business, frustration, etc. And unfortunately, we had to part ways with those individuals. And I take full ownership of that, because really most of these issues are us as leaders not being clear, or in some cases wanting to rush to outcomes that, if we had taken a step back, could have been prevented. You can also think about this with clients. If you're taking on clients who are very, very, very novice in terms of their journey, whether it's health, fitness, or whatever, it's going to take them a little bit longer to get results. Whereas someone who's been there and done that several times, they're going to get results a lot faster because they have that foundation already in place. So how I plan on fixing this moving forward is essentially understanding that we always want to be having conversations. We always want to be hiring. And again, it depends on where you're at in your business, but you can think of this lesson also in the form of how you are acquiring clients. I would never turn off the faucet of acquiring clients, just like I would never want to turn off the faucet to hire potential team members. So in order to avoid rushing into decisions, I want to be having conversations with prospective team members, even when we're not hiring for that specific role, because should that role or in addition to that role open up, I never want to be in a pinch where I'm making bad decisions. So I think a really good rule of thumb in business is to always be hiring. As the leaders, one of the most important points of leverage we have is to always be looking for great talent. It's one of the biggest leverage points we have. And to think that we can only have a conversation with some candidates for a month and then turn that off and the rest of the year we're okay, I've learned that lesson the hard way. So I would encourage myself and anyone else who this would be applicable to is just have that pipeline of conversations with candidates on tap all the time.
So with all the lessons I learned in 2023, the biggest, by far the biggest, communication, clear communication is everything.
Sorry, what I meant to say was that of all the lessons I learned in 2023, the biggest by far is that clear communication is everything. You see, whether you're talking with prospects, potential clients, existing clients, members of your team, etc., the biggest downfall in business, in my experience, and this is a hard lesson we learned from last year, was just vague communication. You see, when we work as solopreneurs, we do everything ourselves. And then eventually as we start bringing people on or we start bringing on more clients, there tends to be this diffusion of clear communication. And there are at least half a dozen specific moments I can think about from 2023 where I dropped the ball and not communicated things properly all the way down through our team. And that led to some different, issues that we had to resolve that, could have been absolved or not even taken place in the first place. So moving forward, what I've committed to my team to do, for me first and foremost, we actually have a tool called the Vision Clarifier. And essentially it's a one-page tool that you, myself, anyone would sit with and just think through our thinking a bit. What is it I want to achieve? Why is it important? What's the definition of done? What does success look like? And actually take a moment to think about what it is we want to talk about or the project or the idea. And especially as your company grows or the stakeholders involved increase, like whether it's the number of clients you have or the number of team members, it's really, really important to take some time to step back instead of just speak. And I'm sharing this with you because my tendency is thought speak, which, can serve you to a certain amount, but I think there's a limitation there. And so for me, moving into the new year, I've challenged my team to challenge me to be like, hey man, this is cool. Have you actually thought through this with the Vision Clarifier? And I'm also doing this the same with our team. So if they bring ideas to the table, I want them thinking through this, because the most important thing we can do as leaders is not only to become better communicators, but it's to become better thinkers. And if we have a framework and tool that can help us with this, our communication naturally becomes better as well, because what we speak comes from initially what we think. So that's a big thing that I'm focused on this year. Is really early on in business, it was really about like ready, fire, aim. And over the years, as our company has grown, it's really less about that and more about like ready, aim, and then fire. And I know that kind of sounds backwards, as you know, I'm not a huge fan of like getting your ducks in a row and procrastinating. I can't stand that stuff. But there's a happy medium of taking a moment to plan things properly and then speak. So clear communication can avoid so many misunderstandings, things falling through cracks that shouldn't have otherwise. So that's one of the biggest things that I'm working on this year. So there we have it. So those are 3 lessons that for me have been meaningful from 2023. Again, like we doubled the business in a year, which is crazy. That's 100% growth. And I share this because we still made a lot of mistakes, and I take full ownership of me being the person that stems from. So just as a recap, for me at least, it's about raising the standards and raising the expectations and really stretching what we think is possible, because even if we get halfway there, we'll be so much further ahead than if we set small goals. Second was the fact that, at least in our case, we don't have the luxury of time to hire people or work with people that are just not where they need to be, because it takes so long to get people where we want them to be, at least in terms of a team member. And with things changing so rapidly, we just don't have the luxury of that anymore. And third, it's really about clear communication, right? Being able to really think through our thinking and clearly articulate what it is that we want. Because communication at the end of the day is not so much about what you say, but it's what they receive. So for me, those are the 3 biggest lessons that I've really had to think through from the past year. I'm going to be doing my best to improve on all 3 of those moving into 2024. I would love to know from you in the comments below, which one of those hits home the most? Which one resonates? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for hanging out today, and I'll see you soon.
Back in the day, I always used to use January 1st as like kind of the reset. And then I realized, well, why would I wait for one day of the year to reset when I can maybe do that more consistently? So what I want to share with you here is really the mindset of how not to fall into the holiday trap.